Joined by Ryan Daniels, who's a senior machine learning engineer with the Accelerate program. He's going to talk to us about some reflections on designing the interface between researchers and large language models in HPC facilities.
Cool. Yeah, thank you. All this talk of sort of agentic systems. There's a poster in, I think it's on the Circle line in London. It's an advert for plumbing apprenticeships, and it says AI is not going to replace this. And I sort of thought, perhaps I should get into that instead. So probably you don't need any sort of motivation to think about open source models, but I'm going to sort of give it to you anyway. So the way that I see it at the moment is that we have sort of 3 points of lock-in, and some of these we can avoid and some of them we can't. So the first being compute, right? There's only so many people that can manufacture chips, and their supply chains are super narrow, right? It's like one company that does one stage, one that does another, and another, and so on. But we have to buy these things. The second is access lock, right? So a small number of companies control frontier models, and they gate them, so we have to pay to use them. The third is more of an epistemic lock, right? So data, training methods, weights, architectures, these are all trade secrets, and we don't have access to them. So the first two are sort of annoying. We need to buy GPUs. There's no real way around this. For the second, we move resources out of the research community. If we're paying for OpenAI models, we're moving money from our community into somebody else's. They expose us to risk. If one or more of these companies falls over, well, then we can't really do anything to control that. I think the last one's a bit more problematic because it undermines all the things we should be caring about, right? Sustainability, reproducibility, some kind of visibility on what's going on inside these models. Like this last one is already a bit of a problem with some deep learning models, but it just becomes impossible when we just have no access to them at all. So we do talk a lot about like AI as a tool that we can use and try and integrate into platforms, but I want to shift the focus slightly away from that to AI as infrastructure that we can control. So what are your options for open source models? So first is the sort of compute problem. Well, data centers are expensive, yeah, all these issues. So first is the compute problem. So it's a little bit faded, but you can go online and for about £20,000, you can buy a pretty good desktop machine. The problem is that, I mean, £20,000 may sound like a lot, but it's quite cheap. Or you can buy a server. Okay, so for a desktop, they're cheap, but they're hot, they're power hungry. Like when you start to get to 3, 4 GPUs, it starts to move away from being able to plug it into a wall socket, right? They're noisy. If you share an office with people, they're going to hate you. For the server, they're expensive. You still need to think about power delivery. Some of the bigger sort of GPUs are still really power hungry, and some of the smaller data centers around Cambridge don't like how power hungry they are. You have to think about management. So we have sysadmins in various departments. They're probably overworked, and now you're asking them to manage your system for your research group. Some delivery issues, right? Any sort of delay could seriously impact your budget. Let's say you're weighing up 2 different options, and in that time, RAM and storage prices spike, which they have done in the last few months, right, to a ridiculous degree. At the beginning of last year, I bought a £150 set of RAM, and it's now over £1,000. That's ridiculous. So just that short delay can cost you, but these are decisions that have to be made. You can't do anything about them. So okay, you've made your decision. You've got some kind of system, whether it's the top or the bottom, and now you need to think about how you're going to serve a language model on it. And there's a few different layers to this. So starting at the bottom, if you're doing any kind of serious LLM work, you need a good inference engine. So Boris's slides showed you he actually had something similar to this machine on the top, and was almost certainly running VLLM. Correct me if I'm wrong. Yes, okay, good. This is something that takes care of all of the mundane things for you, like memory management, batching, scheduling, all that kind of stuff. Which is fine if it's just you and 1 or 2 other people, but what if you have multiple researchers, perhaps you're a big lab, you might want to manage access, you could have multiple models, right? You might have multiple GPUs, different models on sort of different GPUs, so you need to route to different models. That's difficult to implement yourself. You might want API keys for your team members. You might want to track inputs and outputs to sort of keep track of what's going on. So then you need this sort of second layer to take care of this for you. You might have people that you're working with overseas, or you might have one of your researchers going traveling and you need to provide them access in a safe and secure way, which is not always easy. So now you need a sort of third layer to make sure that you're not doing anything dangerous, like exposing ports to the internet when you shouldn't be. Okay, so now you need this sort of third layer. So there are different sort of layers of complexity depending on what kind of access you want to provide to people, whether it's to just your researchers or other people in the community. So most people are sort of fine with 1 and 2. But then you might think about, well, I've got this expensive machine, I need to justify to people that, you know, it's being used. I need to gather all of these sorts of metrics off of my GPUs and my CPUs and make sure that, you know, I haven't spent thousands of pounds on this thing that's only getting like 5% utilization, right? So, you know, you gather all of these sorts of metrics, stuff like the tokens being sent and received, that's taken care of by the previous track, but you also want to be monitoring this very expensive piece of hardware. So you have to set this up too. So this is all kind of like frightening. It's a lot of things that you might want to set up in order to be robust and safe and sort of make sure nothing falls over, catches fire. The RTX 6000 Pros that you can buy use a 12-volt high-power connector and it catches fire. So you got to sort of monitor these things. So and you also might want to think about benchmarking as well, right? Like if you're doing high throughput tasks, I might have thousands of documents that I want to collect summaries off of or just extract some information out of. You need high throughput. So on the left, high throughput, lots of tokens through. But if you've got an agentic system where you've just got 2 agents talking to one another or multiple agents, you want low latency, which sacrifices throughput. So you need to know what kind of systems you're going to be, or what kind of applications you're going to be using your LLMs for before you sort of make the decision to, you know, buy, because this impacts what kind of hardware you might need. So yeah, this is all very frightening, and you end up with this situation where you have single research groups all around the university and all around the country and around the world who are sitting on their sort of GPU treasures. It's kind of blurry, but it's like in the middle there. He's guarding that desktop. And they collect all of this knowledge and sort of keep it to themselves to a certain extent. They keep the compute to themselves, of course, because it's their hard-earned compute that they want to use for their research. But in some sense, you've got people who are now becoming sysadmins for their hardware, when potentially they could be focusing on the research. So we decided to try and set something up ourselves and see if you know, this was possible. So we bought a server ourselves and decided to set up some kind of large language model inference service. So this is it. It consists of monitoring the actual inference stack itself, including all of the 3 sort of stages I showed you, plus benchmarking, how to, you know, sort of run benchmarks, which is not always an easy thing to figure out how to do. We also released some documentation on, you know, like there's all these scripts there, but what do they mean? And how you can potentially change them for yourselves. But I think probably the more important thing, or the thing that I find quite interesting, is, so we also plan to release the design records as well. So, you know, we meet, we talk, we discuss, you know, should we go this route, should we go some other route? Why did we make the decisions that we made? So over the coming sort of weeks and months, we plan to sort of start rolling this out and running some projects on it. But the main thing is sort of contribution from others, right? So we want a blueprint that anybody can adopt, right? If you're running a very small platform in your office, you should be able to use this, versus if you have a larger server, right? We want community accessible open source LLM services, so something that we hope to provide moving forward. Something that's scalable, right? So this can just be scaled from 4 GPUs to 8 to potentially more. And a community of contributors to shape what comes next as well and what they need from a service like this. So that's really sort of what I'm hoping to get out of today in the discussions around like what's the Raspberry Pi of sort of agentic systems is what can we do, what can we add to make this easier for you to use, and if you want to run local sort of models, like how to sort of make that easier. So like we might not get to the stage where we're running like frontier level sort of models, but that's okay because there's this whole sort of community of people, both here at Cambridge and at other universities, and specifically online as well, right, who are setting up all of these systems in their garages and doing stuff that I guarantee larger labs will have not thought of because they're sort of working at the edge, right, and they really need to make good use of their resources. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Any questions? Yes.
Great talk. How much is the infrastructure you're thinking about setting up at Cambridge? How much does that something like that cost?
It depends. I mean, it depends what time of year it is. Yeah, so for something like a desktop, 2 GPUs to run pretty large models on, like 120 billion, anywhere between 18 to 20,000 pounds. For a server of the size that you saw to run multiple models for potentially hundreds of people, 150,000 pounds. Yep. Post-RAM spike prices.
So it seems like you probably need to you need to kind of pick which models you're going to serve.
Yeah, right.
Right. So, and if you're working at a certain scale, then that's just a load balancing thing. And
Yeah.
But if you've got 4 machines,
Yeah.
you're not going to offer very many models, presumably.
No. Yeah, that's right.
Is that like how much do you anticipate that being a near-term problem? And are there general utility models that you think would serve most use cases?
Yeah. So I think people are always going to be picky. They're always going to prefer some models over others.
Yeah.
So where we're sort of leaning at this stage, and the general consensus seems to be that the 120 billion GPT OSS model is pretty good, a pretty good all-rounder. At general sort of coding tasks, we could feasibly run both that and like the newer Quen sort of side by side and still serve quite a few people or a few different projects.
So you can fit them both on one GPU?
No. So when I say 120 billion, it's not 120 gigabytes. They use some MXFP for sort of precision. It's actually quite small. So you fit that on a single A100.
Okay.
So yeah, you could feasibly serve 2 or 3. What's also important is that routing layer can also route to closed source models if you wanted as well. So there's the option to provide closed source models. It also offers like federation capabilities as well. So if you have other people running the same software, you can route to their hardware as well. Any other? Yes.
I'm curious how much electricity it costs.
Sorry, say again.
How much we pay in electricity when we have this kind of machines?
It's running in a data center. I don't really know. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, it can be information that you collect from your sort of hardware monitoring to keep track of over time. I mean, if you think about 2 6000 Pros, they're 600 watts each. So 1200 watts from 2 of those, whatever the CPU draws, probably less than 100. It's going to be a significant power draw. But exactly what it's going to be over time, not sure. Probably a drop compared to HPC. Any other questions? Cool, thanks.
Thank you, Ryan.